How's it going, everybody? It's Warren. Welcome back to the Cosmic Wonder, where we talk all things Marvel and MCU. And today we have some really great news about not one, not two, but multiple projects coming to the MCU, both in the theaters and on Disney+. We have confirmation of a Shang Chi sequel, confirmation of a Shang Chi spinoff, which we'll talk about in depth in this video. And we have Antman and the Wasp Quantumania news. One of the villains, because there are going to be multiple villains in this film, we have details about one of the villains for Antman and the Wasp Quantumania. So in this video, we'll talk about these upcoming projects and break down everything that we know about them so far. And of course, if you love Marvel, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest MCU news and videos. So Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings was a massive success for Marvel. It's one of my top 5 MCU favorites now, and it did incredibly well overall. So it should come as little to no surprise that Shang-Chi is going to be getting a sequel. I actually talked about this a while ago because I had the chance to interview the director for Shang-Chi, Destin Daniel Cretton. And the last thing we talked about in the interview, the last thing that he told me was that there are a lot of plans already happening, and that they were thinking about the sequel when they shot the first one. It seems like it alluded to a sequel. Do you have anything mapped out for the sequel yet that you'd like to do?
Yeah, I mean, even while you're shooting the first movie in the Marvel world, that's kind of the fun part, is you kind of know your movie never ends. So yeah. There's lots of brainstorms happening and what ifs being thrown around already. So there's a lot of exciting things planned for the future already.
So today's report from Deadline comes as little to no surprise, as they say in their headline: Destin Daniel Cretton inks overall deal with Marvel Studios and Hulu's Onyx Collective, set for Disney Plus MCU series and Shang-Chi's sequel. Now, what does this mean? Well, according to Deadline, they say that Destin Daniel Cretton has entered into an exclusive multi-year overall deal with Disney companies, Marvel Studios, and Hulu's Onyx Collective. And they actually state that Destin is already in development with Marvel Studios on a new MCU series for Disney Plus. Now, Deadline goes on to say that there is no word about what this Disney Plus series could be. However, we pretty much know. And if you've seen Shang-Chi as well, you pretty much know thanks to that post-credit scene. But all the way back in October, Daniel RPK actually reported that Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings would be getting a spin-off series on Disney Plus, and he stated that it will focus on the Ten Rings organization. And again, if you saw the post-credits for Shang-Chi, you know why this is the case. And spoiler alert, in case you haven't seen it, at the end, Xialing took over the Ten Rings organization. Her father died, and she took it over. Now, Shang-Chi believed that she was going to be dismantling the Ten Rings, but of course, as we saw at the end, she just redid it. She brought it back to life, but she added females because her father never let women train. So now it's actually a bigger Ten Rings organization with men and women, and it seems like Xialing has a lot of plans. And she has Razor Fist and John right by her side. So the Disney Plus series has been announced, and it looks like we have figured out what exactly it's going to be. It's going to be a Disney Plus show focused on Xialing and the Ten Rings organization. Now, we're not sure when this is going to come out, but I'm not sure they're going to go into too much details about the actual Ten Rings artifacts, the weapons. The other post-credit scene for Shang-Chi made it seem like the rings were very, very ancient and could possibly be alien. They sent out a homing beacon at the end to who knows, but it looks like that's what Shang-Chi is going to be dealing with in the future, and possibly some Avengers as well. That seems pretty big scale, so I'm not sure they're going to dive into that in the Ten Rings organization series, but I'm sure Shang-Chi will pop up in the series. After all, it is about his sister. And I'm assuming that's going to come out before the sequel to Shang-Chi, where this will all kind of tie together. Where the rings come from, what Xialing is doing with the Ten Rings organization. It's all going to come full circle when we finally get that sequel. Hopefully, we'll learn more about Ta Lo in the sequel, because that's something that I really want to know about. In the movie, they said they had cities in Ta Lo that were far greater than any cities in the world that Shang-Chi lives in, that the main MCU lives in. So I'm certainly hoping that we get a little bit more of a deeper look into that. Now for some really awesome Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania news. According to an exclusive report from TheDirect.com, Ant-Man 3 is bringing Modok to the MCU in a big way. And I gotta say right now, Ant-Man 3 is shaping up to be a super big movie. I personally really enjoyed Ant-Man 1 and Ant-Man and the Wasp. And sure, they weren't super huge movies, but I still really enjoyed them. But this movie, Ant-Man 3, is about to be a huge movie. We're going to have Kang the Conqueror and Modok in one movie. And not to mention, Darren Cross is rumored to be making his return as well, which is exciting because Yellow Jacket has always been Ant-Man's arch enemy. But here's what the direct has to say about Modok, and they do mention that AIM should be coming along with Modok as well. They say Modok was reportedly included in a previous script draft for Quantumania that was written by Paul Rudd himself. So it seems that the villain managed to survive rewrites long enough to make it to the final film. And I do remember reading about that. I do remember that Paul Rudd did write an entire Ant-Man script by himself. And he actually had a lot of crazy cool stuff in the script. And Modok was one of them, and it looks like they liked that. Marvel Studios liked it. The direct goes on to say, given that AIM was also a part of this past version and the group's association with the villain, it's likely that the organization will also make an appearance alongside Modok too. Now here's the big question. What role will Modok have in Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania? Because Jonathan Majors, Kang, is supposed to be the big bad villain, not just of Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, but of the MCU. So where does this other big villain take place? What's his role? Well, there's speculation right now about two possible answers to this. And if you didn't know, Modok is actually an acronym and it stands for Mechanized Organism Designed Only for Killing. He works for AIM, but due to an experiment gone wrong, he ends up taking over AIM and he gets a overdeveloped, freakishly huge head, but has insane genius level intellect and psionic powers. So here's the two roles that Modok could have in Ant-Man 3. One is that he could actually be a rival to Kang. Kang is a genius, and if we're dealing with Nathaniel Richards, he actually comes from the future, a very, very advanced future. And given what we learned from Loki, no doubt Kang definitely has some plans. However, I'm assuming Modok probably has some plans as well. And as the direct points out, there is a chance that the plans could kind of interlap with each other, and one of them might get in the way of another's. So we could see Modok and Kang clashing heads. However, as the direct points out, an alternative could be that Modok may actually help Kang. He could be an asset to Kang. The Kang we met in Loki was well aware of his variants. In fact, I'm pretty sure all Kangs would be aware of their variants since they all went to war with one another. And history tends to repeat itself, so we can assume it'll happen again. And if that's the case, the Kang that we'll meet in Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania might want to get rid of the others, and Modok is a mechanized organism designed only for killing. If you're trying to kill somebody, he probably would do a good job, especially if you wanted somebody smart on your side. So Kang and Modok could actually be working together in Ant-Man Quantumania. And let's also not forget that Bill Murray is going to be joining Ant-Man 3 as well. This has been confirmed. Maybe he's playing an AIM member, who knows, but this movie is looking to be truly epic. And not to mention, Cassie Lang should be becoming Stature, and this could be the start of the Young Avengers. Now, unfortunately, we'll have to wait until mid-2023 to find out, but luckily there is a lot happening in the MCU before then. But let me know how excited you are about a Shang Chi sequel, about a 10 Rings organization Disney Plus show focused on Xialing, and of course about Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. Let me know down below. Don't forget to like the video, and for live updates, you can always follow me on Instagram and Twitter. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.